In today's episode, I talked to my friend Shaun Gordon. Shaun is the founder of Kiss Books, and he shared his journey from entrepreneurship at a young age to becoming a very successful wedding photographer and then transitioning into selling albums to serve clients. We talked about the importance of mindset, storytelling, and really coming from a place of love when it comes to serving your clients in your photography business. This conversation with Shaun was amazing. We had so many important moments where we share strategies, when we share mindset shifts and things that you should definitely look into as an entrepreneur. We talked about the value of serving clients with an entire experience and the mindset shifts that are needed to position yourself in a way to sell products in the wedding industry, but also really concepts that can be applied in any other industry. So if you are a business owner who sells any kind of product, this conversation is definitely for you. I hope you enjoy this one. I had a great time with Shaun. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, and today I have Shaun Gordon with me. I'm so excited. He is the founder and visionary at Kiss Books, and he helps photographers go from starving artists to successful by serving their clients better than ever before. I've heard Shaun talk many times before, speak on this, and I cannot wait for him to share all the amazing things that he has in store for you guys. So welcome, Shaun.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. So I want you to just tell them a little bit more about you, what you do now, and then I do want to backtrack a little bit and just follow the journey of how you ended up the owner of Kiss Books. But so tell them what you do now.
Yeah, so my titles, right? There's titles in life, and then there's who I actually am. My titles are CEO, visionary of Kiss Books. I am a husband of 23 years. I have 3 kids, and I really love those roles in life. What I'm working on is like patience, strong leadership that has boldness and love. And love for me is challenge and support. So those are the areas of like who I am that I'm working on right now. But yeah, like it's been quite the journey. I'm excited to go to backtrack a bit and share the story and also just share like where we're headed. So thanks again for having me.
All right. So you, before Kiss Books, there was a career in wedding photography for a while, photography. Was there something before that?
Yeah. So I kind of started out as an entrepreneur. At like 13, 12 years old, whatever it was, me in the neighborhood kids started like all kinds of businesses. I had a newspaper route. I worked at a garage for cash, like just swept the floor and went and got parts for them. I wanted to work from an early age. We even made a carnival where we set up like all these different games, like throw the ball to get a goldfish, and we would push people around on a skateboard, and we called it a roller coaster. We'd sell tickets and we'd sell little candy bars. We were entrepreneurs from the get-go. It was like, and then I started a lawn mowing service, and I didn't have a lawnmower. And then my buddy started one, and he had a lawnmower, but I had to use theirs. And so I went into competition. I had so many different businesses from the time I was probably 12 or 13 years old. And, and then I went into like flipping pizzas and delivering pizzas and all that type of stuff as well. But I loved owning a business. My dad always owned a business. So I kind of, not always, but a lot of times just had a job with him and would just like, how do you do this? And how do you get clients? And I was always curious about entrepreneurship. But yeah, my main career was a photographer for 15 years. And just before that, I was what my wife and I call my last real job. I ran a printing press. And so I went from printing on paper, like for mailers, to now I print, photo albums for photographers, for families and weddings and things like that. So pretty long career in printing. And I love owning a business.
That's awesome. How did you fall into photography? Tell me about that story.
Yeah. So my wife was not my wife at the time. I was dating her, and I wasn't really looking for somebody. And we met swing dancing. This is back when swing dancing was cool in like the late 90s, early 2000s. We were from the West Coast. So we met swing dancing, and I became infatuated with her really quick. And I own this. It was my fault, but like I would call in, and I've been a Christian my whole life. And so honesty is something that I really try and hold as a high value of mine. And I would call in, and my boss, I would say like, "Hey, I'm not coming in today." He's like, "Are you sick?" And I was like, "No, like I just don't really want to come in, and it's a nice day, and I've met this girl, and I really want to like be with her." And so I would take days off like that. So I had lost my job. I got fired. He finally fired me, and he's like, "I wish you would just say you're sick." But I'm like, "I just won't do it, Laird. Like I'm not sick, and so I'm going to be honest. I'm just taking the day off, you know." And so he finally fired me, and then I had like a bunch of vacation and all these like paid time, so I wasn't like going to retire, but I was like 21 years old, and my wife, my girlfriend at the time, was like, "What do you want to do for a living?" You know, and I was like, "I've never really thought of that." My dad always like just did something. Like he owned a mechanic shop, was not a mechanic. He owned a trucking company, never had his Class A license. He drove like smaller trucks, but he ran a big trucking company. And so I was like, I've never really thought about what I want to do. I just know I need to go make money. And so I took a little bit of time and thought about it. And I was like, I think I want to be a photographer. A buddy of mine that I played softball with at the time is this like photographer, and it seems really cool what he's doing. And so she's like, take him to lunch and see what that's about. So I took him to lunch, and I said, "Hey, I want to do like action sports like snowboarding and motocross." And I was an athlete growing up, but never like, I never got signed on the baseball team. I snowboarded, but I never got on the team. So I liked being around it, but I was never like fully good enough. And so I was like, I can photograph them. So I could just be around them and be in magazines. And so I took him to lunch, and I told him that. His name's Mike Colon. He's still a photographer. He said, "Shaun, like I know you're going to want like a family someday and all these things." He's like, "It's hard to be a sports photographer. There's always going to be like a 16-year-old or 14-year-old kid that will just take the pictures and want to be in the magazine for free. So it's hard to make a career out of it unless you know." He goes, "Come shoot a wedding with me." And I was like, at the time I was like, wedding photography doesn't seem that cool, you know? And I'm like, I don't know if I want to shoot weddings. So I photographed a wedding with him, and I fell in love with it. And so that was in November of 1999. And then that in the year 2000, in March or whenever WPPI was, I drove with Mike Cologne and his wife. We drove to WPPI. I bought gear, and I went into business, and that was it. I did not look back. I had done photography in high school. Like, you know, you like develop the black and white, and I enjoyed it, but it was never like this passion of mine. I was into music and different type of arts. But when I started to photograph weddings, I was like, this is special that they let us into this space. I'm a pretty emotional guy. And so watching all these different relationships and how they worked and didn't work sometimes, and just being able to document these emotions, I fell in love with it. And that's what I did for the next 15, almost 16 years, shot around 500 weddings, mostly on the West Coast. There's no real off season there. So I'd shoot 50, sometimes over 60 weddings some years. It just became so easy for me to do because there was so many weddings. I got plugged into the industry pretty quick. I love people. So my referrals went up really fast. I did wedding shows at first, and then I had a line out the door, and that was it. I was like, I got to figure out how to run this business because I know how to do the creative side. And that was that. You know, I ran a business for 16 years, shot 500 weddings, and ended up shooting some international stuff. And I actually didn't like the international stuff. It was easier to just do it at home, because when I was shooting 60 weddings, then I'd have to travel. That just took it out of me, because I was like, it's just stressful getting all your gear there, getting it all back, and all those things, you know? And so I was like, the destination thing sounds cool for the resume, but like, I like shooting. I live pretty close to Newport Beach. So let me just go shoot there all the time, and I'll be home. And so that's what I did. And yeah, I did it until 2016 was my last wedding.
How long would you say it took you to really have a good grasp on the business side of the wedding photography? Because I feel like so many people dive into photography because of the passion for the art, right? So, like creatives and all that. And I came with a different mindset, which I think it positioned me into a whole different way. But, you know, but I feel like so many people struggle to really like recognize it and then put the time into the business side of things. So, how long did it take you to recognize all that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm still trying to figure that part out, to be honest. But my fifth, sixth, and seventh year were very busy, because I had started to. I was 5 years into it, and I was shooting about 30 weddings for myself, and then I got a job with another. I was always looking for like work to shoot with a second shooter, or photograph for another studio. I got plugged into one of these studios that does like, hundreds of weddings a year, and they pay you hourly. And that's when I started to learn the business, because they would give me a checklist and I was like, a creative doesn't need a checklist, and like, let me just photograph what's in front of me. And but they would pay extra for the checklist. So I was like, I'm going to do the checklist. I'm going to make an extra $75 if I get all these checked off. And so I would do the checklist, and I finally asked them, they're like, you're doing really well. And I moved up quickly. So I'd shoot like 25 to 30 weddings of my own, and then 30 weddings or so for them. And I would ask them like, why do you have this checklist? And they're like, these are the photos that sell. These are the ones that go in the album. These are the ones that go on the wall. And I was like, that's so interesting, because these aren't my favorite photos. These are like, backlit, couple, and this shot with a specific flash, this shot of the family a certain way. And they were kind of boring to photograph, but he's like, these sell. And so I was like, I need to start doing a checklist for my weddings, because that's going to sell more. And that's when I started to learn from their business model that, I can make more money on albums and wall art and these other things, because I can take creativity and separate it a little bit and understand, the business needs certain things. I can still be creative and do this checklist, and then I sell afterwards, That's where I really started to understand it. And that's where I fell in love with albums. As I started to deliver the albums, not only was I like delivering their story to them, making more money, they would thank me for it. And that's what they would talk about. They're like, I love this album. And then I started to speak over them and the album and set these traditions in their life. So this creativity and business started to go hand in hand. And I was like, this is where it's at, because before that I was like working for my dad's business or getting a side job. I worked for my other buddy's business who had like a construction company. So I needed to make ends meet. I'm in Southern California. I'm shooting a good amount of weddings, but I'm trying to learn this business thing. We were having kids right out of the gate. All kinds of stuff was going on. Life's expensive. So I'm like swinging a hammer Monday through Friday, like half days, running my business the rest of the time. And I was like, I need to make more money. And so I can only shoot so many weddings. I'm shooting 60 weddings and still trying to make ends meet. I'm like, how can I do this? I can actually serve them better and make more money by doing it. So it was in that like 5th, 6th, 7th year. And that's when I finally started to become successful as a photographer, like financially, like people loved my work from the get go, but it was like, I could take off financially and be like, we can make this into an actual business where I don't have to work another job to make this happen, And so I was willing to do the work. That's what I learned from my dad, was like, put your head down, get the work done. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. That was the mentality of my dad. And I love that. And I could now take it into a space that I do love. I loved the photography. I love the people. I love the relationships. And I needed to serve them with more things in order to make more money, instead of just raise my prices. I could do that a little bit, but you end up peaking out with that as well. There's only so many weddings that you can shoot over $10,000 at the time, especially. I was like, okay, this is great. There is a business side of this, and kind of the sky's the limit. Some of these people, like, I was their budget. We were a backyard wedding. I was their budget. They end up spending thousands of dollars on albums. And I'm like, this is wild. I'm like, there's no way, because I couldn't afford it. That was part of the issue. Is like, I'm not my target market. I had to understand that. They just fell in love so much with it that I would just show them it. And they were like, I have to have it. And I was like, okay, like, I'm not Dave Ramsey, so I can't manage their money for them. But I'm like, I'll sell it to you. But that's so weird, because we just photographed in your backyard. I was your budget. And now you're buying, an extra $1,500 or $2,000 album in like 2005. I'm like, this is wild. And so that was when we were off to the races.
Isn't it amazing? I feel like because I came in with a good amount of business mindset into this is a second career for me. So I was in healthcare for 10 years, and, I manage clinics and I manage staff and I develop programs. So when I started my photography business, I'm like, this is a business. I had a hard time calling myself a creative. And I still do, to be honest, because I feel like people use that sometimes as an excuse not to really pay attention to the business side of things. And so I was able to grow really fast because I had this like business mindset. And but yeah, it's so amazing when you really focus on serving your client and see, sell. I talk about selling from a place of love, really understanding what that you are offering, something that is a solution to their problem or something that they really want and value. You're not don't spend their money for them. You might not be your ideal client, and most of the time we're not. Photographers love to like exchange sessions and do things where they don't spend their own money. So, I say practice what you preach. There's nothing like feeling the quote unquote pain of spending money on a print product to help you understand how to better serve your client when you are offering them an album that costs, thousands of dollars. Do it for yourself. Understand and see how much value you put into that piece of artwork, and that would definitely help you understand how to better serve your client. So, yeah, that's definitely something that I feel like people take way too long to realize, and just struggle for the longest time. So you talk a lot about emphasizing that importance of working on mindset when you talk with when you're teaching photographers. Talk to me about some of the key elements that you focus on when you're helping them to help impact their clients' lives.
Yeah, like we're not our target market. That's what we've kind of covered. And they can understand that and be like, oh, I can't afford this, but I can still charge this for my service. But then to sell, to talk about money and those things, a lot of creatives, we all have mindset blocks, like money mindset blocks. And every human does. They're just different, right? And so a lot of creatives, the starving artist is a saying for a reason. A lot of times it's like, oh, my clients can't afford it, or I'm not a good salesperson. It's like, okay, that could be true, and you're currently proving that to be true. I'm okay with that. But would you be willing to be curious with me? What else could be true? What if it's not selling? What if you're serving them? Because you already sold them, X amount of dollars to go and photograph their family, wedding, whatever it is that you're photographing. So you already did a sale, and that's exciting. But then this other piece, these like other components, whether it's like wall art or even a second shooter or engagements, any add-ons is like, it shuts people down sometimes. And so I'm like, okay. And the way that the brain is designed, if you like put your hand in a fist, for the listeners that aren't watching this, if you put your hand in a fist and you put your thumb inside of the fist, your brain is shaped like that. The front of your brain is like the knuckles. It is the frontal cortex. That's where logic is. Sometimes when we start talking about money, logic goes out. They call it flipping your lid. So it's like you open your hand and that little piece inside controls fight or flight, fear. It's where fear sits. And that takes over. When that's on, you no longer have access to logic. Now you can rewire it to bring logic back in and start to understand it. It was designed for when we lived like where bears could attack us. We're no longer in a place like that. Most of us aren't. We're safe. And we know that, but the brain is still trying to keep us safe. That's like its first job. Keep us alive, keep us safe, keep us rested, keep us like with food. So when we're afraid of something like, oh, I have to sell, fight or flight goes in. And that's why we're like, we're done. I was talking to a photographer last week. I coach photographers all the time. She was like, even when I get to the design process, I feel like I have to do it perfectly. So I just don't do it at all. And I was like, that's such an interesting block. Like you want to do it perfect for your client. So because you're not sure you can do it perfectly, you don't do it. And I'm like, oh, this is great information. What else could be true? What if perfect isn't what you have to show them at first? What if it's just your rough draft, your idea of what you saw, and then you allow them to help you make changes? And there's like, oh, that I could do that. And I'm like, great, that's just a baby step, right? If we allow that to continue to happen, it can get to the point where we're like afraid to go out of our house. We're afraid to get on an elevator. We're afraid to get on an airplane because the story that we make up in our head. Our brain is so powerful. It's beautiful, but it's like a double-edged sword. It's against us sometimes. And where we want to go is like this beautiful, we want to serve these clients and do all these beautiful events, but sometimes we're not going to be able to get to those because of fear. Fear is going to keep us from more than failure ever will. Like fail forward. People have these like concepts in these talks about failing, and failing's only when you stop trying completely. You could get up, dust yourself off, and I don't consider that failure. I feel like I fall all the time and just get up, dust myself off. I'm like, okay, I need to learn from that. I hope I don't fall that way again. Now let me go again. And that is like the mindset stuff. I've learned a lot about it. A lot of it came from actually two of my kids have dealt with some like anxiety and high level depression and things like that. And so it's not something that I'm grateful that I've been confident. Now, a lot of it was insecurity and actually covering up the insecurity. So I was this like false confidence, but it got me to places where I was like, wow, I really shouldn't be in this room, or it felt like I shouldn't. But because I was so confident, all of a sudden I'm in this room with like all these like people that I'm like, wow, you're way smarter than me. I hope you don't find out that I'm not that smart. but like that confidence that can come with trying over and over again, that's how you get better, just a little bit at a time. And if you have some people around you that are like for you and cheering you on, and not like a cheerleader would do this no matter what, but somebody that's like encouraging you to grow and go again, that's such a powerful thing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, all we really have is how we respond to life. Life's going to happen. The storms are going to come. Entrepreneurship is volatile. I mean, there's ups, beautiful high highs, and terrible low lows, and we get to weather those storms. It's like I need to be good at weathering the storms so that I come out the other side, because they're going to come. And that has so much to do with the mind. I don't know what percentage of it I would put on it. Your skills matter, but your mindset, it is the willingness to go again that's going to get you places. The difference from where you are today and where you want to go is discipline, some skill set, and then consistency. And that consistency is going to come with like days you don't want to be in the gym and days that are easy in the gym. They come and go, and we get to just deal with it. And so it's like building a strong mind can get you so much further than even like, I know some very talented photographers, like their work is insane. I know some very talented musicians. Nobody knows who they are because they're afraid. And that's not a bad thing. It's just what their current reality is. And I love talking to them because I'm like, you are so beautiful and like amazing and powerful. And I can't wait for you to believe that. Once you start to believe that is when you get to show up and the world gets to access this wonderful thing that you have to offer. And ultimately, every human has that in them in different ways. Some people, it's numbers, which I don't understand. People are like, oh, it's so amazing, these numbers. I'm like, okay, we're probably not going to be friends, but we should work together because I need you to manage my numbers. And then there's these musicians and painters and like creatives. And I'm like, they're the ones that are starving, because they're afraid to do those things. And it's not a bad thing. I don't think of it as bad. It's just awareness and then willing to grow through that.
Lots of amazing things there to unpack. Let's be honest, you didn't build this business to work 80 hours a week, chasing invoices and solving problems at midnight. But now you're hit a wall. You've outgrown DIY and you're spinning your wheels trying to scale and stay sane. That's where one-on-one coaching with me comes in. This is not a cookie cutter program. It's tailored, strategic support designed specifically for founders like you, the ones who built something from nothing and are now carrying all the weight. We'll get clear on what's keeping you stuck, simplify your focus, and build a plan that gets results without burning you out. If you want a second brain and no BS sounding board, and someone who can help you make better, faster, smart decisions, this is for you. Head out to accidentalceo.co/coaching. That's accidentalceo.co/coaching. And let's work together to grow your business and take your life back. So I shared this story. I don't know if I shared it on the podcast, but I definitely told my husband about it because I had some clients over last week where they were getting their pictures back, and I pre-designed an album for them, and that's when they purchased their album. And we were having this conversation, and the bride said, "Yeah, I really wish we've had a videographer for our wedding, but I just couldn't afford it." And she was literally saying that as she was purchasing $4,600 worth of print products. And I'm thinking in my mind, people, first of all, don't really know what they want, right? And they value different things because obviously you have this money to spend. That's what a videographer costs around here. Like you could have
you could have a good videographer for that price,
You could have booked a good videographer. So so a lot of times, even if I hadn't offered that would be something, a memory that she wouldn't have, a product that she wouldn't have, and money that I wouldn't have, right? Just because you don't go through that discovery process and really understanding what your clients need. So let's dive a little bit into talking about how you can serve your clients with these print products, and how do you do that from a place of, again, serving and not feeling like you're being, salesy and slimy.
When it comes down to it, the best marketing that we can do, I believe, it's kind of 101, but we get away from it. Marketing 101 is you share a story of some type. People love stories. And then as soon as you can help your clients get into the shoes of one of the people in the story, That's where the sale happens. That's where you get to serve them. And so that I get that from Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand, or something along those lines. Story brand is what I call it. And it's simple, but that's it. Is like when I am in a consultation, whether it's like for a family, with a family, I would talk about the family, 5 years from now or 7 years from now. The kids are older, maybe they're off to college. That's when you look back at this book from when your kid was younger and living at home, and you remember what it was like to be you and your family to be the way it was at that time. And you try and put them in the shoes of them sitting down. It's like like even me right now, my daughter is down at college, and I talk about her as like my favorite daughter. She's my only daughter, and so I say favorite daughter, but my boys know that she's my favorite. It's like I have a book. It's actually sitting right there, and it's her senior. She just finished up her sophomore year, so she's been in Nashville for 2 years. And when I look back at that, there's some photos with her friends, and I get emotional because I remember what it was like when she lived here at the house. She's not coming home this summer. She is staying down in Nashville, and I miss her like crazy. And I'm excited for her because she's doing life. It's not so far away. She's not like across like the Atlantic Ocean. She's like 5-hour drive. I could fly down there, but I still miss her like crazy. But I can remember what it was like when she was here in the home, and these photos take me back to that moment. So I tell a story like that, and then they're like, oh, I really want to have an album so that when my kid is gone, you get to a point where you picture yourself in that. When it comes to weddings, it's like, I want you to sit down on your anniversary before you go out to dinner, sit down, pop a glass of your favorite, and flip through the book. This could be 1 year anniversary, or it could be 10-year anniversary. And I want you to sit down with this book next to the person that you got married to. Before you go to dinner, just flip through the book and remember what it was like to be you on your wedding day. Remember the way that you saw each other. Remember the friends that were there. Remember the families that were there. And maybe this is the 10-year anniversary. It's kind of a big one, and you're excited about it, but you're like, I don't even know if I like this person right now. I love them still, but we had a rough year. And so I encourage them to ask each other a couple of questions. Be like, what are we going to celebrate tonight that we did this year? And then what are we going to go and do in the next year to celebrate next year on our anniversary? And when people can picture themselves in the seat, like on that couch with a glass of Prosecco or bourbon or coffee or whatever your drink is, if they can picture themselves having that conversation, that is when the album becomes way more valuable. So I talk about the album, not about the album as an album. I don't talk about how great the printing is and the pages and the leather or linen and how beautiful this album is. Like, that's just topping on the cake. I want them to think about the experience of it. If you look at Disneyland and Starbucks and these Apple, they don't talk much about computers or coffee or even like the rides. It's an experience for all of them. And so if you look at it, one of my favorite ones is my friend of mine's a magician. If you look at his marketing material, it's not about his tricks. You can sometimes see cards in his hands, and he's a magician, but what he's videoing for the marketing is the response to the magic. It's the wow factor. And so that is how to serve your clients, is put them in the shoes of somebody in this story, of a story that they want to be a part of. And that's where things start to just fly off the shelf. It's the experience that they're going to have. They're like, it's worth it for me to invest in myself in this experience that I'm going to have with you as a photographer. Now you're no longer just a service. You're basically an experience that I get to have over and over again every time I flip through this album. That is where it gets really good. And so that is serving them as well as charging them for that service. I don't know the last time you were at Disneyland, but it's not cheap anymore. But people are still willing to pay, and there's a line out the door. They sell out almost every day. Why? Is it because of that one ride? Maybe. Maybe some people are in line for the new whatever, Star Wars or something like that. Most of the people are there for the laughter and the smiles and the experience that they're going to have at this beautiful park that they're about to go into, that they needed to take a second out on their house to experience with their family of 5. It's wild, but they're able to do it because they serve with experience. They may talk about the new thing, that the new land that's going to be created, but look at their marketing. It's people walking through it, experiencing it with some type of ice cream or balloons or like laughter. That is what we are purchasing, is a moment. And that moment is worth, I get to decide as the consumer, how much it is it worth to me? How much am I willing to invest to have that experience? Take that and put it in the bank, because if you can start to talk that way about your photography and the basically your client journey or the experience that they're going to have, that's what they'll refer you for. I don't know if I was ever referred. I think I'm a decent photographer. I took so many pictures, for 500 weddings. I have some good ones in there, right? I don't think I was referred many times because it was like, look at this photo. You have to hire Shaun. It was like, he made me feel this way. People buy how you make them feel. They barely remember what you did. They will remember how you make them feel. And so that is what I invest in over and over again, is the relationship. So I can get to know who they are, create the experience that I know they will enjoy. And that's what they end up talking about. I had such a fun time with Shaun. We had you want like an adjective that has something to do with not your art, but the experience that you create. That is how to do this business in any business. It doesn't matter if you're selling cars, tires, wall art, or, like suits or dresses. It doesn't matter. You talk about the experience. You don't talk about the actual physical product.
Yeah, 100%. I always tell people the pictures is what makes people come talk to me, but what makes them book me is 100% the experience. Not, it's just a way to connect with people and really give you the opportunity to then show what's going to look like to work with you. I want to talk a little bit about, so, for somebody who's never thought about selling products, right? You need to get into, I feel like there's a right mindset, and in a different way do you need to start looking at weddings when you are going to position yourself to be offering these products. And that means there should be a change in what it's, that basically that shot list that you talked about earlier, right? So there should be a change in the mindset of the shots that are important for you to capture are no longer going to be those super cool artistic shots. You need to prioritize a different kind of vision for the wedding day. Not that you can't do that anymore, but how do you set yourself for success as somebody who's going to be selling products later as a wedding photographer? So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I like to talk about the future. So I can even share something with a photographer that's listening. Picture this. Picture yourself 5 years from now, and you're actually the second shooter to a lead that's getting all these shots for the book. So this lead photographer is making sure that the photos of the family's done, the photos of the kiss, the photos of whatever it is that is going to tell a solid story. So they are taking care of the main characters, and they are taking care of those main moments, all those traditions that happen in a wedding. At the end of my career, I was shooting weddings for $25,000 is what we started at. And we were at the end of the day making between $50,000 and $60,000 per wedding. I was a second shooter. And in the last 5 weddings I did not touch a camera. I did not take a picture. What I did was I led my team, and I also made sure the experience was going. Because a really, really good coordinator typically is going before the couple. They're going to make sure that the red carpet's rolled out for the next thing. So while we're getting ready, they're getting the next spot ready, and so we're not interacting a lot other than maybe via text or something like that. And so I was making sure that the experience was going really well so that the emotions were going to flow, and then somebody else was taking the picture. I got rid of basically as much pride as I could. I still have pride and all these things, but I was like, I don't need to actually take the picture for me to create a great experience. I actually have a higher emotional intelligence than I do in IQ, and I can hire a really good photographer. So I can do what I do really well and then bring them in. So picture yourself in a place where you can just like lead a team that is photographing these moments that you get to do. Now come back to reality, come back to today. How do you do that? How do you move towards a place where you are serving them with the entire experience? It starts by putting an album in the package, because a lot of times it is hard to upsell them after the fact on the entire album itself. So I typically get like a highlight reel is what I call it. So it's like a simple version of it. Honda and Toyota and all these companies do the same exact thing, right? Like if you saw the Super Bowl or something like that, you saw a commercial, they're selling you a lease or some type of a payment. It's going to be $328 for this car a month, right? And then when you go to drive this Toyota or Honda or whatever it is, you don't drive the one that's $328. You drive the one that's like $528 because it has a sunroof, seat warmers, it parks for you, it has all these safety features. You drive that one. Why? Because they want you to experience all these things, and they don't want you to buy the base model. And so I do that in my business as well, where I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and put an album in, and I'll even show you an album or two of somebody else's wedding, but there's nothing quite like seeing your photos in an album. And when you first show them, it's on a screen. And so you can put music to it. You can have them experience it like with their first dance song. They're like all emotional because they're more attached to it because it's their photos. But it's hard for me to sell them. If I had to sell them, you said you had like a $4,600 album sale. If I told you it's $5,000 or $7,000 to hire me as a photographer, and you're going to spend an extra $4,600 on albums, that's a hard sell. That's why so many people are afraid of selling, because that is a difficult sale. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in your package for $7,000 or $5,000 or even $3,500 is a highlight reel. It's a little 8x8. It's a great like parent book. It's great as an engagement book. And even if you use it as your wedding album, it's a great highlight reel. It's like watching a movie trailer of your wedding, a movie trailer of your wedding. So you go and you photograph the wedding, and I'm clear about all this. I tell them, I'm going to show you a larger, like more like the full length story. And then you get to decide what's in your album. That is the best way, in a nutshell, how to serve your clients. People have accused me of this being like manipulative. And I was like, okay, I'm okay hearing that, because manipulation isn't always a bad word. We think consequences, manipulation, we think those words are like negative words because we typically use them as negative. But that's what owning a business is. You're trying to get them on board with your work. Like I'm a light and airy photographer, or I'm like more of a dark and moody photographer. You're trying to connect with and align with people that want those things. So you're manipulating them by showing them those things. But when it comes down to it, I want to serve them really well. And I want that. I don't know. I don't think it was every time, but almost every time when I put an album in their lap, whether they spent an extra $1,000, no extra money, and they just got the highlight reel. At the end of my career, I sold a set of albums for $29,000. All of those people, or close to all those people, thanked me for it and sang my praises as they referred me for the next wedding, because they knew I was going to serve their friends as well as I served them. So you can call it manipulation if you want. What I call it is I'm serving wholeheartedly, because I know that that album is going to create these moments that I am so grateful that I got to be a part of for them. Because photography is magical. And there are so many things that I'm going to get in the way of if I don't overcome this idea of like, I'm going to do this sale to them. What I'm doing is I'm serving them. So I put an album in their package, and then I show photos of them with the full length story in it. And then we start talking about, great, you're in an 8x8. Most wedding albums are 10x10 or 12x12. What's your living room look like? Is it the living room that you dream of and you already have the furniture? Or are you poor like I was when I got married and you have all this hand-me-down stuff? Then let's design an album that's going to look good in that room. How many spreads do you want to tell your story? And then I walk them through payment plans if I need to, or a lot of people just say, I want it the way it is, right? When you design it, the full length story, and they just pay for it because they're attached to it now. It's photos of them, of a wedding. And I try and do it in a shorter time frame. They got married, a month ago, and they're seeing all this stuff. It's way better than, 9 months later when they're like, oh yeah, I got married 9 months ago, and they're far from it. They're just excited about it. And then on their 1 year and 2 year and 3 year anniversary, when they flip through it versus flipping through it on a phone, it's two totally different experiences. And I feel like I can sleep really good at night because I know I served them really well. I personally served hundreds of people that have an album of their wedding because that's how I served them. And I meet with people regularly. This is not a bad thing or a dig at them, that have photographed hundreds of weddings and never sold one album at all. So how are their clients viewing those images? Some of them may have gone out and got their own album, but statistics would say they probably didn't. And they're probably getting emails, texts of some type saying like, hey, can you send me a link to my images again so I can post on social media that I got married, 2 years ago? That's not how I want my clients to experience their wedding only. I want them to post because that's referrals walking in the door for me. I love technology. What I want that post to be is actually them sitting on the couch, flipping through the book, remembering what it was like. I get the chills, and I've said this thousands and thousands of times. I get the chills because I can picture some of my clients that I served like that, and other ones of like photographers that I've taught to do this. I know that people are having those moments, maybe even today. We've done hundreds of thousands of albums from Kiss Books. We've printed that many books. I can almost guarantee you someone probably today is going to sit down with an album remember what it was like to be them 7 years ago, and for them to experience the album versus just doing it on a phone. I love that we have access to all these photos on our phone and you can just type in anything you want and it'll pop up. But there's nothing quite like sitting down with a shoebox full of photos or an album and experiencing it. It's just different. And that's how I want people to experience photos.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole, I think it comes back to limiting beliefs when you start looking at things as manipulative and, and you're just, again, that's probably there's something in there in your background that makes you think that money is not a good thing, that money is evil, that, rich people are evil and selfish. And, it's okay to offer that. There's a whole psychology when it comes to buying things. And sometimes our brain just acts a certain way just because it's programmed to act a certain way. So not sticker shocking them from the get-go, telling them, "You're gonna send double the money," at the end of the day, would just, you don't that information is not gonna help them, is not gonna help you. It's unnecessary to be shared at that time. I do tell my clients, a lot of a vast majority of our couples will spend more money later in their products. I don't need to say how much. I don't think if you want to give them an average, you can, but you just start planting that seed of like, you're going to love these pictures. You're going to want these memories to look down 5, 10, 50 years down the road. It's coming. That's when I tell them, that's when I say sorry, not sorry. Because you're going to love your pictures, and I love that you're going to love them, and they're going to struggle not putting all of them in an album. And that's okay. I'm
It's
happy that you
totally
love
okay.
them.
And even the fact that you said like they like you're afraid of it, like it's your brain trying to keep you safe, and it is, because it's way more comfortable to not sell to somebody. It is. You could be their friend, you could be, you could give them all these wonderful things. It happens all the time. It's more comfortable. I can almost guarantee that whatever life you want that you see, like especially on social media, these beautiful like vacations and all these like successful people, we make them out to be bad people sometimes, because it's like it's scary to go from where I am today to those extravagant things. Now, I'm not saying you have to be on a yacht, because you're so celebrity, status and all these things. But like I do want you to be a successful creative entrepreneur, and the money is part of the reason, but my top priority is like you can impact these people in a different way. If they're sitting on the couch flipping through an album, asking each other what they're celebrating tonight and what they're going to go celebrate, you could save their relationship, because not a lot of people have conversations like that. And that's an impact that you get to have, but not if you're not going to serve them in that way. It's scary to do it that way. It's scary at first. Change is, Robin Sharma says, scary as like change is hard at the beginning, and then it's messy in the middle, and by the end it's beautiful, because that is what we see. Is we see the beauty, but there's a mess to get to the beauty, because we got to figure it out. We get to order that chaos. It's scary, and our brain's like, I don't want to do this, I'm out. Why don't we just take their pictures and give them all the images? I'm like, okay, what if by you doing that, they don't do anything with those photos other than see it once a year on Instagram or Facebook? I'm good with that ultimately, but I don't think, I know you could serve them differently. And I believe that my perspective is you could serve them way better. You actually make a bunch more money as well. That is a perk. But the impact that you have on them is like, that's what I want you to feel, because that's what I love today, is the impact that I get to have on people. The money's great. I'm totally good with that. But I had to get to a place where I was good with that as well, and understand why I feel the way I do about money, because I have my money blocks even today, but I work through those if whatever's on the other side is worth it to me. And most of the time it is.
Yeah, it's that fear of rejection, like learning to detach your self-worth from the product that you're offering, and being okay with being saying no, knowing that you're coming in from a place of wanting to serve, wanting to provide that experience to your clients. Very hard to do, but definitely a skill that you can work on, like anything else. The same way you learn how to use your camera, you can learn how to sell from a place of love and really serve your clients, and not leave all those pictures in a phone somewhere in the cloud. So tell everybody what makes Kiss different.
What I think sets Kiss apart is really like it's the vision and the heart behind it, because when it comes down to it, I can teach you how to sell any album out there. Ultimately, the loyalty tends to come from the fact that I personally love helping photographers go from where they're at to where they want to be. And that I feel like a therapist a lot of times. I'm not a psychologist. I've just studied it a ton, but I feel like I do probably more psychology than I do the actual skill set, because the skill set's pretty easy. It's like once we can get through some of the mind stuff, like they're like, oh, this is great. This system's wonderful. And so the difference is like the heart of my team and myself. We want to see you succeed, and we want to see you impact the world with your creativity. We want as many people as you can handle to see your work, but also to be impacted by the experience that they get to have. And we will hold your hand as we do that. That is the biggest differentiator with Kiss, and with a lot of there's a lot of wonderful album companies out there, and I know a lot of the owners. There's a lot of great product out there. What you're going to get from Kiss is like a team that knows we are here to serve you in a way that you can, at some point, we're going to challenge you to be uncomfortable. And then you're going to grow into that uncomfortable, and it will be comfortable again until you're at the level of creative entrepreneur that is serving your clients the way that you want. And you've created a life for yourself as well by actually investing in retirement and all the things that goes with, like, when we go get a job, we expect them to do that for us, give us healthcare, give us all these things. When we own our own business, we got to do it. And it is not easy and not fun. What helps with that is money. The amenities just happen to get better when you have money to do that with. And a lot of people are doing this like as a side gig. I totally understand that. But what if your side gig ended up out earning whoever you're like married to? And you could pay for the vacation, you could pay off that debt, you could take your kids on the vacation that you knew you couldn't afford without doing something like this. There are things out there that you want to do that you're probably not doing because of money, and that's okay. Money is not the evil thing. It's just it gives us access to those things. There's a way to pair what we do for a living with financial success. That alone could shut people down. So let's take the money and just set it aside for a second. But think about like a vacation or an experience that you want to have. I want to put my kid through college. I want to, pay cash for a car. I want to, whatever it is, that experience that you want to go have, it just happens to be the gateway to that is finances. And so it's a big, scary thing, but it is manageable. And there are people out there that know a lot about money that can help you with it. And it doesn't have to be a scary thing. It's okay that it is, but it will become less and less scary as you learn more about it. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. We went into business for ourselves for certain reasons. A lot of times it's like freedom. I want to make my own schedule. I want to do creativity, whatever it is that we want to do. And when it comes down to it, in order for us to do that well and do it often, we get to learn the business side of it. It's not fun, but attorneys, CFOs and CPAs and all these things exist for a reason, and we can partner with them without having to like hire them full time on our staff. There are so many beautiful ways for us to get there, and that's what we do at KISS. We help photographers serve their clients really well with printed product, and the kind of topping on the cake is photographers become more successful because of it. And success, you get to define it how you want. Finances is just one of the reasons that you would be successful. That's typically how we would define it because it's the most measurable one. But who you are and the impact that you're making on those clients is part of that success. When you wake up in the morning and think, what do I do for a living? What gets me out of bed? It's going to be more than anything, it's going to be the impact and the feedback that you get from your clients that you served really well. That is what I want to work through, these mental boundaries that we've put up, these barriers that we get to work through. They say the obstacle is the way, and it is. It's like we see an obstacle, we're like, well, I guess we're not going on that journey because it's like, no, we can get through that, but it's just going to take some work and some uncomfortable conversations, some uncomfortable like things. And once you go to the gym and you get under a certain amount of weight, after a while that weight gets lighter. That is exactly how it works for the brain. It gets just easier because you've done it enough times where you're like, oh, I'm actually getting better at this. And I'm serving my clients better. And the feedback is like, yeah, add a little more weight and let's see if you can lift this. We do that mentally. Oh, now I'm serving my clients. My prices have gone up. And I'm not a big preacher of like, you got to raise your prices. No, I'm like, we're going to get you comfortable to a place where you understand what your value is and your clients understanding that they're investing in themselves. They are making a decision whether or not they're worth the investment. You need to be a good enough photographer. That's part of it. But like we work through all those things when it comes to KISS. And my favorite thing to do with KISS is to sit with a photographer and see them start to believe in themselves. That's what I get to do. And I'm so grateful for my team that supports me in that, because I get to run this business that's bigger than I ever thought it would be as well. And I can get caught up in that, but they're like, no, like go do the things that you do, because that is why people use KISS as well. It's because the experience that they get when it comes to the education and when it comes to all these other things. We happen to make really, really good books, but I hardly ever talk. I could do this if I was selling tires, like I could help you get down the road with these tires, like we just happen to make these beautiful, creative books. And I get to serve photographers by showing them how they can serve their clients with those albums.
Thank you so much, Shaun, for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate you. Where can people find more about you or KISS if they're interested in learning more?
Yeah, so follow me personally. I still manage my own Instagram. I'm at Shaun Austin, ShaunAustin. I'd love a DM. I love working with photographers. I'm not too busy for you. Like I will respond to that one. And then for KISS Books, you can go to @KISSBooks on Instagram as well. We'd love to hear from you over there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know we got so much value to the audience today. So I'm very excited that you were able to join me today. Thank you. I'm so grateful.
Thanks for having me. It was such an honor.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us today. And we'll see you next week in another episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nada Salvatore, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.